So hello everyone, I'm Mondon here, welcome to my video. This is episode 11. So I will have a quick review here. I will talk about the rat power mainly, right? Because that rat would win. So spoilers. Spoilers, right? Of course. The rat would win is of course obvious. Like it was so obvious, it was foreshadowed pretty much episode 1, you took an ending, but I mean of course rat would win because rat's like always lying there, sleeping in the background. Obviously the cat is gonna win, rat's gonna enter and do something and end there. And especially when we get down to, okay, it's Ox left with Rabbit, and they're already in a battle. Of course, Rat's gonna appear, either defeat them both, or like wait until they're both injured, and you know, and so on, right? So it's just like, yeah, it was kind of predictable, right? Very much so. Using the bomb for sheep, yeah, a lot of people said that. I was like, yeah, it was pretty what I expected to happen, something like that. I didn't think it was gonna throw it at least. I placed it at Rabbit's body though. You just placed it next to Ox and went away. So I felt like I get it closer, but whatever. So that's good and dandy. The rabbit is freaking genius though. The rabbit is like, oh, I'm gonna hide monkeys out of my body. I'm sizing up the body shape there, right? He's like, it's really big now. It's like that's why. That was great. That was really great. It was like, man, you really feel that Rat cheated this thing. It's like, yeah, the rabbit guy is freaking amazing. So anyway, then we get kind of Groundhog Day, and that's why I really wish they would explain his powers better, but they really don't. And I guess it's kind of an easy way to do it, to be honest. It's kind of like watch The Walking Dead or but a lot of zombie stuff usually. But zombie movies are great, for example. It's where they don't really explain. Not just how they exist zombies, but they don't explain how it started, right? They just love that in so many zombie things. They just love doing that. It's like they don't really explain how like the zombies took over, right? Or something else. So for example, Walking Dead, the biggest, I would say, yeah, biggest zombie name right now, right? If you was watching episode 1, and I read the whole comic and so on. What happens is that the main character is, for whatever reason, like knocked out or something, right? Yeah. And then he wakes up and it's like, oh, he's been in a coma and it's gone months. Yeah, I remember, I thought it 1 month, but is it 2 months? Whatever. It's like he's been sleeping for a month, he wakes up, and then the whole world is filled with zombies, and he's like tanks, he's like National Guard people that, you know, have been defeated, right? And he's like, what the hell? And he gets a gun and he can defeat zombies himself. And so on. Like, that's kind of how it is, right? And that's a very, very common way to do it in zombies, especially zombie movies. That you just kind of skip over how humanity actually lost, right? Kind of like, I don't want to explain how it actually happened. It just happened. And that's kind of how I feel with Rat, to be honest. I actually feel it's not the best writing ever. Definitely not, because it's kind of like he has some kind of time power, but it's not really defined how it works. And it's kind of like, how would that actually work? Because the thing, I discussed this with people a lot on Reddit for a few weeks now, right? How does power actually work? Because the reason why I say it can't just be future sight is because people remember him. That's the problem with it, right? And that's the thing that I always said to people that it's probably a dream or something, or some kind of like time reverse thing, so people are like reliving the time with him or something. And it seems to be like a time reverse thing, right? I think that's what I would call it. It's like more going back in time than seeing in the future. It's kind of how I feel the power works, even though it says if I do this thing I will lose. But it feels like he's kind of like living all the different realities at the same time, and then it goes back again to his like previous save point. Because otherwise people wouldn't say, oh, I've seen him before, you know. That's the problem with the whole thing, right? That's that whole thing has been mentioned over and over again since episode 2, I believe. The people recognize him and have a deja vu feeling when he is there, right? And that means they probably have relived this moment. They have relived this branch of life, this reality with him earlier, and he has like gone back in time, and they have like a partial memory of what actually happened, right? So they have a partial memory of like, I remember talking to him, but I never met him. But yeah, they have like a very slight memory of having met him and so on, right? Which is the same day or the same moments, but it's like replaying them. So that's how part has to work. He can't just be like a future sight thing. That doesn't make any sense. That he will just see in the future. If he has future sight, that is a huge plot hole, really. Honestly, it's a huge plot hole that everyone will keep saying that. I think this guy talked to him before. This guy been here before. Yeah. That would make no sense. If he purely see in the future, he would just, you know what to do, and then they wouldn't know that he is in the future. But it's much more like, so kind of like Groundhog Day feel to me when I watch the thing. It's like he relives the day over and over again, so he kind of learns from mistakes. Oh, I can't do X because then this gets me. If I go Y, if I go this way, you know, Ox gets me. So I have to play it out in this order. That's kind of how I interpret power generally. But if it's more like because it's a gamer, right? So if it's more like it's a back and forth save state thing, he plays a game and then he reloads his last save file. It's like, wait a minute, this pattern going reload save file. He goes back like 3 hours, and then everyone else that kind of met him during 3 hours, they kind of have not a good memory of it, but have like a very, very hasty memory that I've been there with him. But at least he's there, like when he's next to them, they're like, I think I've seen this guy before at this place. But weird, yeah. And then they kind of have a very, very brief like, have you lived this before? Yeah. So then they get a little memory back, right, when he's close to them. That's why I would explain it, right? It's like so kind of rewind time, or kind of a little bit like Groundhog Day, where you reloop time, or like Subaru in F-Zero, Ram-Zero, yeah, like he kind of lives through it, and people here, they kind of remember it because he's doing it 100 times, so they kind of like, they all have like a very, very small, you know, like a 1 million, I guess, memory of it, and he does it enough times with them, they start remembering stuff like, wait a minute, have we thought about this earlier in the sewers? It feels kind of weird if you're here again. Yeah, and so on. So I think it does, I would say the list, because it doesn't make any sense that it would just be pure future sight, even if it's that's why I don't like this episode that much, because sometimes in this episode, it's kinda presented as future sight, right? Like you just foresee the future, right? You can see all probabilities and all strategies. But that doesn't make any sense. If he just sees that, it goes from the 100 path rat practice, they see all the paths at the same time. That makes no sense. It's more like he living all the 100 paths. Then he goes back and say, okay, path 37 was the best path. It's more like that to me. I think that's kind of how he's doing it. It's like he's actively in all the different realities at the same time. And then he like returns his body. It's like okay, I'm going this path because this was the best path for me. What I saw from this path. So that's like this path. Because also, as I mentioned it again, it says that he cannot see the endings of all the paths, right? Like, oh, I don't know what happened if I lost, like, if I was first to lose, then I wouldn't know what would happen later on because I could only see very briefly next to me. So what that means to me is that he's actually having to relive all the path. He has to actually go into the path, right? Live that path, and if he fails it, he goes back again, right? So that's why he can also know what happened after he lost. That's why he actually not actual future sight, right? Or it's like future sight as long as my body is still. It's kind of weird, yeah. So I think it's much more like he has to live the future. He has to live that current, that branch, right? He has to play the branch as a game. He has to play the whole save, that whole kind of vision novel. You play the vision novel game, you set different branches, right? He has to play this whole branch. When you get here to the end, it's like, no, I don't like that as my wife, so I go back again to bed one. And yeah, like that kind of thing, right? It has to like replay them from last saved. That's why he also, I guess that he couldn't save enough backwards sometimes, if I'm unsure or so. Whatever. That's why I said, yeah, like he has to live them. And that's people have brief memories also living them with him, if he's next to them. So anyway, next week, I guess he's gonna fight the old guy, right? The Happy Hand guy, the whole government thing, that's my guess on it. His wish could be something like, probably reviving the good people like Ox and Monkey and like Chicken and so on. Again, yeah, Tiger probably. It's probably gonna resurrect everyone, and then he's gonna go there and like they're gonna defeat the evil government probably. That's what I'm thinking. Something like that. He can see all the different pathways. He can try the different pathways and find a pathway where he can like defeat the evil government. Right? I think that's gonna be his thing next week. What Spider Dog wasn't. Yeah, I mentioned again about why didn't we see an Ox and Rat flashback? It might be next week then. A little more Rat's personality and so on. I think so. Anyway, see you next week and have a great day.